The Caribbean Sea, the night was endless black. 60 nautical miles off Cartagena, the ocean breathed quietly, unaware of the storm about to erupt above it. A U.S. Navy P-8 Poseidon, call sign Shadow 2, prowled through clouds like a wolf hunting in silence. Its infrared sensors swept the void, and then froze. 5 vessels appeared out of nothing. No navigation lights, no transponders, pretending to be humanitarian aid ships. But under the thin disguise, the cameras saw death. Chemical containers glowing faintly, signatures of meth and fentanyl. Over 5 tons, street value $30 billion, enough to drown the American East Coast in poison. What the Poseidon found was not a smuggling crew, it was an industrial armada. Intelligence streams converged within minutes. NSA intercepts, DEA chatter, Coast Guard pings, all pointing to the same horror, an unholy alliance between Venezuela's Los Centinelas cartel and Mexico's Gulf Syndicate. Their leaders, Rafael El Toro Mendez and Santiago Ruiz, had fused their empires into a floating death network. Chemical reactors hidden inside ship hulls churned synthetic drugs every 4 hours, designed to crash markets, cripple economies, and enslave a generation. Washington moved instantly. Secure channels flared alive: FBI, ICE, DEA, Southcom, Operation Codename Iron Tide. At 2:31 a.m., the order hit the fleet. From Naval Station Mayport, the USS Freedom surged forward, an Independence-class combat ship bristling with weaponry and precision systems. 2 SH-60 Seahawks lifted from its deck, blades slicing through mist, while an MQ-9 Reaper climbed into the darkness, watching from 6,000 meters. Inside the Freedom's Combat Center, glowing red icons dotted the digital map like spreading infection. Target confirmed. America was at war, on water. At 2:45 a.m., the Poseidon's thermal scans deepened. What looked like cargo crews were actually 70 armed soldiers, body armor, AK-103s, PKMs, RPG launchers. These ships weren't freighters, they were floating fortresses. Even worse, beneath the decks, readings spiked, miniature lithium reactors, military grade, stolen from Venezuelan state facilities. Cartel smuggling had turned into state-backed warfare. The Reaper marked the first ship. The Freedom's radar locked second. The Seahawks dropped low, skimming wave crests, their rotors screaming through the tropical air. The U.S. Navy didn't wait for provocation. It preempted it. The ocean fell silent for 3 breathless seconds. Then, America struck first. The Freedom's 57mm Mark 110 gun roared to life. Shells tore the darkness apart at 900 meters per second, exploding against steel hulls. The lead vessel erupted, flames twisting skyward, turning the sea blue with burning chemicals. The cartel responded, wild, chaotic, defiant. Tracer fire streaked from every direction. RPGs spiraled through the air, splashing short of their mark. But the Freedom's armor laughed off the impacts. The Seahawk gunners answered in kind, M240 barrels glowing as they poured 900 rounds a minute into decks below. Within minutes, the battlefield looked like a collapsing oil rig, fire, smoke, and rain of debris. One enemy ship detonated prematurely, ripping open its own hull to reveal an even darker secret, a cluster of submersible drones loaded with sealed drug containers. They had planned to sink below radar, drifting north to the Gulf. That plan died in a single flash of white light. The Reaper's Hellfire missile descended like divine judgment. The explosion flattened the sea. The drones never surfaced again. When the smoke thinned, the Freedom closed distance. DEA's Shadow 6 strike team fast-roped onto a smoldering deck, moving through wreckage and boiling metal. They found steel drums labeled as medical aid, disaster relief. Inside lay the truth: 5,000 kilograms of narcotics, $42 million in vacuum-sealed cash, and forged manifests stamped with Colombian and UN seals. At 4:05 a.m., the battle was over. 5 ships neutralized or seized, 43 cartel soldiers dead, 26 captured alive. The rest vanished beneath burning waves. As dawn crawled over the horizon, the Caribbean sky was painted in orange and smoke. The Freedom floated like a lone titan amid drifting ash. Yet victory brought revelation. Hidden inside one of the confiscated laptops was a digital ledger, a trail leading not to the sea, but inland. Coordinates pointed toward two sites, Bogota and Cartagena, warehouses disguised as charity distribution hubs, masking full chemical empires. The ocean battle was only the first chapter. The war was moving ashore. Commander Ellis Moore stood alone on deck, eyes scanning the blazing horizon. The sea hissed with fire, but the message beneath the chaos was clear. This wasn't just a cartel. It was a shadow economy, a proxy state funded by an enemy nation. America would not wait for another wave to reach its shores. The Inferno line, 03:10 a.m. The Caribbean Sea burns. Engines screamed as the USS Freedom cut through the black water like a blade. The first victory had not quenched the storm. It had summoned it. Radar screens pulsed with new contacts, fragments of the destroyed convoy scattering toward open sea, desperate to flee before the dawn exposed them. But there was no escape from the eyes of America. The MQ-9 Reaper tracked every movement with clinical patience. Its thermal optics mapped fleeing signatures like fireflies over dark water. Then came the order, one the ocean itself seemed to shudder beneath. Intercept everything. Leave nothing alive. The Freedom surged forward. Seahawks swept ahead, slicing through humid air. Beneath them, cartel ships rearranged in panic, forming a crescent defense line, a shape born from old pirate stories. Gunports opened. Shadows moved. The trap was ready on both sides. Then the night exploded. Tracer fire tore across the waves, glowing arcs whipping against the darkness. RPGs hissed, slicing toward the Freedom in bright spirals. Armor rang, sparks scattered. But the ship held steady, its hull built for wars the world would never see. The Freedom's retaliation was surgical. The 57mm gun rotated with mechanical precision, belching thunder. Each shell hit like a hammer from heaven. The first ship vanished into a wall of blue fire, chemical stockpiles igniting into a rolling mushroom of smoke. The second buckled in half, its deck folding like paper before sinking into the abyss. Under the wreckage, sonar caught something impossible. Moving dots, small, metallic, submerged. Autonomous drones, 20 at least, detaching from the burning hulls. Each carried containers the size of torpedoes, programmed for silent infiltration toward the US coastline. The Reaper pivoted, sensors locking. One by one, its payload fell. Streaks of fire carving the sea. Drones turned to vapor before they could vanish into depth. A final explosion shook the surface, scattering bioluminescent plankton into a ghostly aurora. The Caribbean glowed with false stars. America's counterstrike was absolute. By 3:40 a.m., the gunfire faded, replaced by the dull roar of burning fuel. DEA Shadow 6 descended again, rappelling through drifting ash. On deck, the agents found the spoils of empire: chemical reactors, forged Venezuelan cereals, fake Red Cross documents. But the biggest discovery came from a blackened terminal pulled from the bridge of the last surviving ship. Encrypted messages, coordinates, and bank routes leading inland to Colombian charity fronts, funneling billions under humanitarian relief. The war had only shifted its coordinates. The hunt moves to land. At 4:15 a.m., while the Caribbean still burned, encrypted cables reached Quantico. Satellite feeds cross-checked data within seconds. Two warehouse hubs, one in Bogota, one near Cartagena, serving as chemical conversion and export terminals. By dawn, U.S. Southcom and Colombian Special Forces had already mobilized. Helicopters roared from coastal bases. Unmarked C-130s rose from Panama, carrying DEA, ICE, and tactical cyber units. The mission had changed shape, from sea domination to city infiltration. The operation was renamed Red Horizon Phase 2. Its objective was clear: burn the routes. 7:20 a.m., the first strike teams reached Cartagena. To the untrained eye, the target looked harmless: a charity distribution center painted with faded UN logos. But rooftop spotters were already waiting. Hidden cameras caught the incoming helicopters. Within seconds, alarms screamed across the slums. The ambush erupted like a second sunrise. Grenades burst along the perimeter walls. Automatic fire shredded the morning air. 30 cartel soldiers swarmed from the alleys, firing from rooftops and trucks. The DEA convoy braked hard, agents diving behind armored vehicles as bullets tore through crates labeled food relief. An SH-60 Seahawk above twisted away from an RPG, engines howling. One helicopter took a direct hit, its tail spinning, burning, crashing into a side street in a storm of dust and fire. But the pilots lived. They crawled from wreckage, bleeding but breathing, and the counterattack began. U.S. snipers from 1,200 yards out started picking targets in rhythm, headshots as clean as punctuation marks. Flashbangs breached entrances. Walls turned to dust under the weight of American precision. Inside, the truth lay exposed. Rows of 3D printed molds, lithium cells, micro-reactors, blueprints for autonomous narco-subs spread across tables. And in a hidden basement, $68 million in cash, gold bars, and hard drives marked Ortega Holdings. The signature was unmistakable. Venezuelan military finance. Simultaneously, Bogota erupted in battle. Another strike team stormed a compound camouflaged as a pharmaceutical hub. 70 mercenaries defended it. Veterans turned warlords. They fired from windows, staircases, catwalks. Each room was a trap. But the American advance was relentless. Grenades, smoke, precision entry. Inside the main reactor chamber, cartel chemist El Científico triggered a self-destruct failsafe. Vats overheating, threatening a toxic cloud over the entire city. The temperature climbed, sirens screamed, pressure gauges cracked. From 2,000 miles away, cyber teams at Langley infiltrated the system through satellite uplinks. They seized control of the network, overrode the detonation cycle, and shut it down 10 seconds before meltdown. When the smoke cleared, 25 cartel soldiers were dead, 43 captured, including El Científico himself. With him fell access codes, offshore ledgers, and encrypted files revealing a financial web connecting Macau, Dubai, and Caracas. By noon, America's counterstrike was complete. 14 tons of precursors seized, $1.2 billion in assets frozen, 2 cities cleared of cartel infrastructure. But the deeper pattern told another story. Behind every raid, every shipment, every dollar, the fingerprints of a state sponsor gleamed unmistakable. This was no longer organized crime. It was organized warfare. As midday light spread across Colombia, the Freedom anchored once more off the coast, serving as command hub for the expanding operation. Its decks were streaked with soot and victory. Above, Seahawks hovered like sentinels. The Caribbean Sea, hours earlier a burning graveyard, now shimmered calm, an illusion America had earned through fire and precision. Yet even as the waves cooled, encrypted chatter intercepted by the NSA whispered of a regrouping, a final fortress near the U.S. border, where survivors of the shattered cartel network were gathering with stolen tech and human shields. The real battle was still waiting, and when it came, it would not be on foreign soil. 07:30 a.m., the morning after fire. The Caribbean burned behind them, but victory had no scent. Smoke drifted over the waves like ghosts of unfinished battles. Inside the USS Freedom's command center, encrypted data streamed across digital walls, coordinates, transfers, satellite locks. The ledger from the wrecked fleet had cracked open the map to the next phase of the war. 2 red nodes glowed bright. Bogota and Cartagena, already raided, already broken. But deeper inside the data web, one more signal pulsed faintly, a shadow ping hidden under Venezuelan communication grids. Something massive was still moving, rerouting money, material, and soldiers northward. The Freedom transmitted the data to Quantico. The response came within minutes. Phase 3, contain and erase. By sunrise, U.S. cyber units had frozen 120 offshore accounts tied to the cartel alliance. ICE teams cut logistics routes across Central America. CIA drones traced convoys slithering through jungle roads towards secret compounds. America had turned the enemy's silence into coordinates. Yet, just as the network collapsed, the cartel struck back. 8:05 a.m., Cartagena Industrial District. The warehouse raids had wounded them, but not destroyed them. A remaining Sentinelist commander, call sign Toro 7, activated the revenge plan. Inside the city, Hidden operatives wired explosives into a civilian freight terminal. The target? The DEA staging point, packed with seized evidence and media crews broadcasting the morning's triumph. When the sun climbed high enough to paint the harbor gold, the ground erupted. Four simultaneous explosions shattered the docks. Cargo containers flipped into the sky. Fire tore through warehouses, detonating confiscated chemicals. The blast wave hurled armored trucks onto their sides. Casualties were minimal. America had evacuated personnel minutes before the attack. But the message was clear. The cartel could still bite. Within seconds, aerial drones spotted fleeing trucks racing through backstreets. Freedom's surveillance fed coordinates directly to Joint Command. From 10,000 feet, a Reaper drone dove. Hellfire streaks crossing the morning haze. One truck vanished in a white sphere of heat. Another spun, shredded by shrapnel, collapsing into flames. Three trucks escaped the kill zone, disappearing into mountain roads near the Venezuelan border. But the Americans had eyes everywhere. By 9 a.m., intercept orders were live. Colombian special forces and U.S. operators boarded helicopters under the blinding equatorial light. The chase was on. The mountains south of Maracaibo swallowed the horizon, a green labyrinth of cliffs and mist. Deep inside, the cartel convoys barreled north, engines screaming, loaded with lithium reactors and chemical stock. Unmarked U.S. Blackhawks appeared out of nowhere, dropping fast through cloud layers. Gunfire erupted between the treetops, tracer rounds streaking through vines. One helicopter banked low, deploying fast-roping commandos who landed on moving trucks, smashing windshields, disabling engines with explosive charges. Each strike was silent, precise, merciless. By 10:30 a.m., the last truck exploded in the ravine. What survived wasn't just wreckage, it was revelation. Among the debris lay encrypted sat phones broadcasting Venezuelan military frequencies. The alliance was official now. State sponsorship confirmed beyond denial. The mission log updated with two words: Rogue State. At 11:15 a.m., as the jungle fires faded, an encrypted transmission hit the Pentagon. Intercepted satellite feeds showed Venezuelan naval units mobilizing near the Gulf, four fast attack vessels and an F-16 flight wing taking off from base Maracay. Officially, it was a training exercise. Unofficially, it was war rehearsal. Washington didn't hesitate. U.S. Southern Command elevated alert levels to DEFCON 3. The USS Freedom repositioned northward, joined by two Arleigh Burke destroyers and a Los Angeles-class submarine lurking below. America's ocean line hardened into steel. Behind it, the coastline slept under invisible protection. At 12 p.m., U.S. cyber forces launched retaliatory intrusion, Operation Fireveil. Within 90 seconds, Venezuelan communication grids went dark. Their air defense radars flickered offline. Drone feeds looped false images of calm seas while real-time USS. Satellites painted every vessel in thermal clarity. In Caracas, silence spread like contagion. The counterblow, 2 p.m., Bogota. Rebuild Zone, the DEA and Colombian Army launched coordinated raids on the remnants of the cartel infrastructure. 24 simultaneous breaches. Urban warfare lit the city's industrial corridors like lightning storms. Mercenaries, paid by Venezuelan gold, poured bullets from windows. Snipers lined rooftops. Grenades echoed between concrete walls. But America had adapted. Armored drones, small as hawks, flew into narrow alleys, mapping enemy fire and transmitting coordinates in real time. Precision artillery from offshore destroyers struck those coordinates 20 seconds later. Each blast erased a building, vaporizing the resistance within. By 3:00 p.m., 70 cartel fighters were dead, 43 captured, 2 chemical plants seized intact. Among the prisoners, an engineer formerly on Venezuela's state energy payroll. His captured ID linked the entire operation directly to Caracas's Ministry of Technology. The evidence was complete. While battles raged on land, digital warfare annihilated the cartel's fortune. U.S. Treasury and Cyber Command froze $1.4 billion routed through Macau and Dubai. Encrypted wallets drained into American-controlled ghost accounts. Corporate shells collapsed overnight, taking investors with them. In under 6 hours, what had once been a billion-dollar narco empire became data dust. Screens in the Freedom's command room showed red after red fading to gray. One officer summed it up quietly in his log. The empire bled dry before it ever died. No speeches, no mercy, only precision. By 4 o'clock p.m., Bogota was silent except for distant sirens. The smell of ammonia and smoke clung to the air, mixed with victory. U.S. soldiers stood among shattered labs and seized gold, the ruins of an empire dismantled in less than 12 hours. The Freedom's flag shimmered on the horizon as dusk crept back over the Caribbean. For the first time in days, the sea reflected peace. Yet intelligence intercepts still whispered of one last bastion, a desert fortress across the border near El Paso, Texas. There, remnants of the Los Centinelas and Gulf Syndicate were regrouping under foreign advisors, holding over 180 hostages as shields. $5 billion in drugs, weapons, and stolen lithium waited behind its walls. The cartel's final gamble had begun. America would end it. 2 p.m. White House Situation Room. The air was thick with tension. Satellite screens glowed crimson. Wrecked ships, destroyed convoys, captured facilities. The evidence was irrefutable. Venezuela had armed the cartels with military-grade lithium reactors and chemical labs disguised as humanitarian relief. The president didn't raise his voice. He didn't need to. His words rippled through encrypted channels traveling faster than sound. Operation Red Horizon, final phase authorized. Across the hemisphere, machinery of war awakened. The Desert Citadel intel named it Fortress September, a hidden complex buried 7 miles from the Texas border, built into the bones of the desert. A labyrinth of steel corridors, chemical vaults, and armories guarded by mercenaries imported from across Latin America. Recon drones counted 320 hostiles, 25 armored trucks, 180 hostages locked in concrete cells beneath the base. Satellite scans revealed 2 lithium reactors ready for ignition. One detonation could erase everything within a 5-mile radius. This wasn't a hideout. It was a final stand, a $5 billion empire disguised as dust. At dawn, long shadows stretched across the desert while convoys rumbled inside the fortress walls. In hidden barracks, men painted cartel insignias on their vests and prayed to gods that had long abandoned them. They didn't know that American steel was already descending from the sky. 09:15 a.m. From 30,000 feet, a formation of MQ-9 Reapers split apart, gliding over the Mexican border under radar silence. Below them, stealth UAVs the size of eagles ghosted through canyons, jamming communications and cutting sensors. When the first missile hit, it was not heard. It was felt. 15 explosions erupted along the fortress's western wall. Fuel depots, gun towers, and radar posts evaporated in fire. The desert convulsed with shock waves. Seconds later, thermite bombs rained through ventilation shafts, melting steel gates and cooking ammunition depots from the inside. By the time the alarms blared, the fortress was already crumbling. The ground storm 350 Navy SEALs advanced from the east, moving through sandstorms and smoke. Mini UAVs scouted ahead, mapping every hostile heartbeat through walls. Snipers took position on surrounding ridges, 2,000 yards out, visible against rock and heat. At 9:21 a.m., synchronized breaches detonated. Thermite burned through the main gate. SEALs surged forward like a flood unleashed. Silenced MP7s spat steel rain. Mercenaries fell before they could raise weapons. In the chaos, American armor punched through the southern corridor. Inside, the base was a maze of flame and echo. Control rooms lit up with static. Surveillance feeds looped nonsense. Cartel commanders screamed orders that no one could hear. Communications were dead. For the first time, the Empire's soldiers realized what it meant to fight the United States on its own continent. There was no surrender, only obliteration. At 9:30 a.m., heavy doors at the fortress core slammed open. A convoy of 6 armored trucks burst out, turrets spinning, firing rotary cannons, 3,000 rounds per minute. A wall of fire tore through the battlefield, shredding metal and sand. But the Americans were faster. UAVs dived in pairs, kamikaze style, striking engines and turrets. Each impact lit the desert in orange flashes. Fuel caches ignited, fireballs 200 feet high. Rotary guns melted mid-spin. Within 10 minutes, the vehicles were carcasses. The fortress interior shook under secondary explosions, collapsing ceilings and detonating ammo stores. Still, SEALs pressed forward, undeterred. They moved through corridors knee-deep in dust and flame, rifles up, precision absolute. The hostages. At 9:38 a.m., the SEAL teams reached the inner block. Two blast doors, chained from inside. Behind them, screams echoed. Infrared scans showed movement. Hostages herded toward the chemical drums, human shields to buy cartel time. Then came the final order. Rescue, whatever the cost. Explosives breached the first door in a cloud of smoke. Tear gas rolled in. SEALs followed seconds later, helmets glinting in dim red light. Gunfire erupted, brief and merciless. Guards fell before they could touch triggers. Hands reached out from the haze. Civilians, bound, shaking, alive. 182 people pulled from the dark. Zero casualties. The operation clock, 9:45 a.m. And as hostages were evacuated, seismic sensors detected rising heat beneath the western wing. A reactor core was overloading. Manual trigger activated by a dying cartel engineer. 10 minutes to meltdown. U.S. Cyber Command linked with the field unit instantly. Through drones and fiber uplinks, the fortress's digital spine was hijacked. A cascade of code ran faster than fire itself, isolating coolant lines, venting pressure, cutting ignition in 7 minutes flat. When the reactor powered down, the last light inside the fortress dimmed. It was over. The inferno of victory. At 10:02 a.m., demolition teams planted final charges. The fortress was rigged to burn. Every lab, every vault, every lie. SEALs withdrew under the rising sun, carrying rescued civilians across dunes while vultures circled overhead. Moments later, a thunderclap split the desert. The fortress imploded inward, walls folding like paper, debris hurled skyward in a burning spiral. The empire that once spanned seas and nations became smoke drifting into the blue. From above, satellite cameras captured the explosion, an image that would circle the globe within hours. For America, it was victory. For the cartels, extinction. By noon, the operation's total stunned the world. 697,000 pounds of chemical precursors seized, $5 billion in assets neutralized, 320 hostiles dead or captured, 182 civilians rescued alive, 0 U.S. fatalities. In Washington, intelligence briefings confirmed what the ruins already said aloud. The largest narco-military alliance in modern history was gone. Its sponsors exposed, its soldiers erased. The desert, once a hiding place, was now a monument to precision. And above it, circling slowly in the quiet aftermath, the USS Freedom's Reaper drone captured the final image of the day, American flag patches on the backs of men walking out of fire.